Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. I don't know if you've heard the news, but Biden's having a little bit of trouble with black voters, particularly black male voters. Shocking, I know. After his election victory in 2020, Biden said that he had black voters' backs. And no sooner than he was declared the winner, he immediately began going back on the few phony, hollow promises he had made on the campaign trail. Now, the plan the Democrats had would be to split the black vote right up the middle along lines of gender. So they made Kamala Harris the VP, even though there's still a question mark, if not an asterisk, next to the claim that her father is a black Jamaican. Then they made a black woman ambassador to the UN. They made a black woman the White House press secretary, and they made a black woman a Supreme Court justice. Now, they did these gestures in order to, they hoped, get black women to feel so indebted to them, so blindly loyal to them, that they would vote for the Democrats in 2024, no matter what, because of these high-profile black women who Biden put in these positions. And as for black men, well, they were thinking that black men, seeing all this political largesse and attention being given to black women, would lose morale, figure that we were made irrelevant, and come crawling back to beg for crumbs, or vote for nothing altogether. Only we haven't done that, and an increasing number of black women have followed suit. But since black men were the ones who this troublesome trend has begun with, now after 3 years of totally ignoring black male voters, the Democrats are having to face the reality. It's sunk in that black men were not so easily ignored, and that black men were going to stay on their square. Now we got the headlines of the New York Times piece saying that allies gather at the White House. But it's not until you read the article itself that you see that Joe Biden wasn't among these allies. Quote, as President Biden's allies grow more worried that his standing is slipping among black men, his aides met on Tuesday at the White House with influential black male Democrats to discuss how to increase his popularity with a crucial group of voters before the 2024 election. Now notice this. They're waiting until less than a year before the election. They only have until November to make the case, but the thing about it is if they were doing their jobs and actually producing for black voters, they wouldn't need to be doing this rearguard last-ditch effort at the last possible moment. Now, the story says that Biden's aides met with these allegedly influential black male Democrats. Well, I want to know, where was Joe Biden at? He's the one running for office, not these aides. If they have allegedly recognized after 3 years how important black male voters are, then why wasn't Joe Biden there himself to make the case for why he should get black men's support? And also, why did he invite only black male Democrats? That's not to say that he should invite black male Republicans, but when they say that word Democrats, we all know what that means. It means that they got the usual suspects, career DNC shills, party volunteers, black men who are desperately hoping that they can get themselves a White House job to burnish their resumes. And these pathetic yes men came to the White House to tell the Democrats what trick language or weasel words they think will con us back into voting for nothing. It's just like these bootlicks you see on cable TV news. They're nothing but sock puppets. And those white media networks know that these bootlicks will only say what they're told to say. And what did these black Democratic males say to Biden's aides? The Times wrote, several attendees said there was a general agreement that Mr. Biden, during both his 2020 campaign and his first 3 years in office, had paid more attention to black female voters than to black male ones. These people said they had suggested to Mr. Biden's aides that the president needed to make a specific argument about how his administration had improved the lives of black men. So the first thing they do is admit the obvious. Biden spent the first 3 years making high-profile PR gestures, pretending to be boosting black women, when all they were doing was the Democrats were giving gifts to themselves. They selected suck-ups who they knew from the jump were going to do what the Democrats wanted them to do and just ignore black people altogether. Well, let me tell you something. Black people, male or female, don't need more attention. We need tangibles. Giving campaign speeches is attention, but it don't pay the bills, and neither does putting some bootlick on the Supreme Court or in the White House or at the UN. But here we have the Times admitting that this is what the Democrats have been saying. Now, shouldn't it be obvious what Biden has done for black men? Why does he have to say anything at all? So Biden didn't show up for this meeting, and the black males who did show up are Democratic shills. What purpose does this serve then? Oh, that's right. It gives the White House the chance to put out a press release to the New York Times claiming that they're listening to black men. This is supposed to be a gesture meant to pacify black men and the trouble that we've been making for them. That's what this is about. The piece also has multiple quotes from one of the Democrats' favorite butt kissers, Cedric Richmond, who lasted all of 1 year before Biden got tired of pretending to be able to look at him. And what did Richmond have to say for himself? He said there's been a mantra that black women are the base of the party, and I think it's black families that are the base of the party. That has the potential to separate the family unit by gender, which I think is just unfortunate. Now, isn't this interesting? Now, for many, many years now, we've had the white media saying black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party, and they've made it a point to ignore black men completely. Why? Because they were trying to drive a gender divide. What you do is you go ahead and give phony, insincere praise to one group and then tell them that they're more important than other members of the same group. And what they're hoping is this will make these people get a big head and that they'll just obey orders. Well, that hasn't happened in this case. It's backfired on the Democrats and the white media. Richmond is currently a senior advisor to the Democratic National Committee, and here he is mentioning that the Democrats have been pandering and that it's backfired, at least as far as black men are concerned. To the point now that one of Biden's former underlings has to publicly admit it. Now, you're probably wondering, who are these influential black Democrat men who were at this meeting? Well, a few of the people who were listed were Representative Stephen Horsford, the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Jaime Harrison, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis of Pennsylvania, along with Antoine Seawright and Clay Middleton, both of who are listed as political advisors from South Carolina, who are closely associated with Representative James Clyburn. So you got Stephen Horsford, who's an immigrant. Go look at my video about the Congressional Immigrant Caucus for that one. You got Jaime Harrison, who's also an immigrant, and Antoine Seawright, who's an LGBT activist who I talked about in a moment of truth about Stacey Abrams' phony black male voter outreach. Back in 2022, the white media was describing Antoine Seawright as a Democratic strategist. Now the New York Times is simply calling him a political operative closely associated with Jim Clyburn. No mention of Seawright's failed efforts to help influence Abrams' gubernatorial run with a phony black male voter outreach program. No mention of how that effort crashed and burned. And when someone is politically aligned with nigga Jim Clyburn, that tells me they're certified dirty. So this is just a few of the individuals, the influential black male individuals who were at this meeting. As I said, all career DNC bootlicks whose real purpose was to be the safe Negroes who would say Biden needs to say all the things he's done for black men, and we'll go ahead and endorse every word of it. That was the game. Well, it won't work any more than Antoine Seawright's advocacy for Stacey Abrams helped her. This isn't an article. It's a PR press release, meant to get the roly-polies and the Mark Lamont Hills and other Democratic shills to say, see, Democrats are reaching out to black men. What more do you want them to do? But the Democrats don't control the House of Representatives, so you got to make sure they get the House back, and also make sure that Biden holds on to the White House. That is, if you want anything from them, that's what roly-poly and Mark Lamont Schill are going to say. You know, back in 2020, when Ice Cube was trying to get some FaceTime with Biden during the campaign, Ice Cube said that Cedric Richmond had told him black voters had to wait until after the election before they could make any sort of request or demands of Biden, and that the Democrats couldn't do anything for black folks until they had complete control of the government. Well, black voters listened to them. We gave them the White House and the Senate and the House of Representatives, and what did Biden do after the election? He ignored us. In fact, he did worse than that. He began backtracking on that Lift Every Voice plan and that White House Police Accountability Commission he proposed. He went back on that one before he was even sworn into office. Naturally, Cedric Richmond totally denies Ice Cube's claims, but given Biden's own track record of lies, does it even matter? So we've heard this song and dance before, and we've heard it from the exact same cast of characters. The story says that according to Richmond, the group agreed that Mr. Biden had many accomplishments that had helped black men. Democrats, he said, are falling short in telling this story. There's another one we all know the meaning of. Biden had many accomplishments that helped black men. Yeah, they just can't tell you what any of them are, though none of them was about reparations or a hate crime bill specifically for black Americans. And that crap about Democrats are falling short in telling that story, well, that's the right word for it, story, because it's made up. Again, if Democrats had made all these wins for black voters, male or female, then the 2022 midterms turnout wouldn't have been so low. Abortion may be a good issue for giving Democratic turnout a little bit of a boost here and there, but the problem for the Democrats is that while it's true white, educated suburban women will vote to legalize abortion, it's also true that they will still turn right around and vote Republican on every other issue. The grab 'em by the genitals scandal didn't stop white women from voting for Trump in 2016, and he only gained white female voter support in 2020. Democrats' constant attempts to try to find substitutes for the black vote aren't working. And for Richmond to say telling the story, to me, that's a red flag that they want to be giving some work to some black consultants or some white ones who will come up with the next insulting ad campaign, and they'll call that black voter outreach. I can see roly-poly right now. Y'all need to hire me because y'all need to give me a consultant job, a contract. I know how to talk to these sorry Negroes out here. I'll have them eating out of y'all's hand. Now, why are Democrats suddenly coming up with the admission on this issue in particular? Perhaps it's because, as the Times reported in this very article, polling released by the New York Times and Siena College last month found that 22% of black voters in 6 of the most important presidential battleground states said they would support Mr. Trump against Mr. Biden next year, an alarming figure for Democrats given black voters' decades-long loyalty to the party. And the Times also points out that the meeting on Tuesday followed a particularly bad stretch of polling for Mr. Biden. CNN polls released Monday found Mr. Biden trailing Mr. Trump by 10 percentage points in Michigan and 5 points in Georgia, both battleground states with large numbers of black voters. By the way, notice that they don't say anything about the fact that black voter turnout for the Democrats has been trending downward for at least a decade, that is, ever since Obama's second term. So obviously black voters have been soured on the Democrats since at least Obama's second term. And just out of curiosity, does anyone remember who Obama's vice president was? Oh yeah, Joe Biden. So the white media admits that Biden realizes he's lost his black voter support in a number of battleground states that he needs if he's going to win. Notice that Biden is 10 percentage points behind Trump in Michigan. Trump carried Michigan in 2016, by the way. This is why we see Democrats who are going hog wild, filling the courtrooms with 14th Amendment challenges to Trump's candidacy in all 50 states. Clearly, the Democrats must feel that they can't beat Trump any other way. And by doing this, they hope to circumvent the ballot box and try to beat him without having to offer black people anything. Well, as I told you last week, the Michigan Supreme Court refused to take Trump off the ballot in that state. And since he's 10 points ahead of Biden, if he can hold that lead, he'll carry Michigan easily. And Biden will also lose Georgia, which was a state that he carried in 2020. So this is why we see the Democrats suddenly interested in getting black men back, because their other tricks and schemes have failed. Okay, so that's what this is. Let me tell you what it's not. This is not some come-to-Jesus moment. The Democrats didn't just wake up and suddenly have an epiphany, especially not Cedric Richmond. This creep was wholesale ignoring his own black constituents when he was in government office in Louisiana, and he was part of the Biden administration too, but here he is now singing a brand new tune. I wonder why. Well, it's not because they had a change of heart. The only reason that they're admitting that splitting the black vote along gender lines is unfortunate is because it didn't work. If it had, they'd be holding free screenings of The Color Purple at the White House right now. And when you look at what the Biden White House's strategy is to try to rope back in those black male voters, you see it's the same as the Israelis when they said the young black people were Israel's biggest problem. And what did that woman say the Israelis did about it? That they held some private dinners with individuals who they called the black leaders. Of course, nobody in black America would call any of these suck-ups and sellouts leaders, which is why this trick keeps failing. But the Democrats are doing the same thing. Kamala Harris had some meaningless photo op in November where she invited a whole 10 black men to her home in D.C. I wonder if her white husband was there too. They invite these sorry Negroes to dinner. Basically, you can buy off a bootlick for a meal. Just like these do-nothing civil rights organizations, give them a free breakfast, a free luncheon, or a free fish fry, and they'll be eating out of your hand. The Times says that the Democrats have also bought advertisements on black radio stations and placed digital ads geared toward young black voters. Oh, like get your booty to the polls? Because that's the kind of black voter ad campaigns the Democrats like to run. One of the greatest political weapons that white supremacy has used against us is our own forgetfulness. We let all kinds of things slide. We let people walk all over us, disrespect us, lie to us constantly, and then 5 minutes later we just forget all about it. But the black media didn't let that happen. We've kept reminding you of the lies, and now here they are trying to recycle the same lies that they told us 4 years ago, and their failure to do so has been so great they've been forced to have to fess up. But here's the problem. Democrats have made so many phony promises to us for so long and lied through their teeth we have no reason to believe them this time. So how do they intend to get our vote when their campaign promises are not even seen as possibly legitimate? And their gender war to pit black men against black women has failed? So what are they going to do? When you've blown your credibility, it's not the job of the voters to give you confidence. It's your job to earn it. But if you want a hint of what the Democrats should do, they can start by talking about reparations openly in the same terms that we do. Nothing about immigrants, nothing about housing vouchers or HBCU money or any other sort of trick. Just cash, specifically for black people whose lineage can be traced back to the killing fields of the American South. Cash. That's how they get their credibility back. Have check, will vote. Or they can just wait until Trump takes back the White House later this year and see what kind of promises he's willing to make. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Gwendolyn Langston, John Matthews, Sherman Marshall, George Montgomery, and Chevalier Foster. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.